All right, gang. Let's do it. My name is Jeff Snyder. I'm a film reporter for TheWrap.com, and we are here at HollyShorts Film Festival with a wonderful agents and managers panel where we're going to find out what are agents and managers looking for. Wanted to introduce our panelists. We have Allard Cantor here to my right, and Jared Murray, both from Epicenter, and then Jelani Johnson from Generate. And since we have an hour and a half to kill up here, I thought I'd let the guys sort of introduce themselves, take 2 or 3 minutes apiece, and just sort of tell us who you are, where you work, what do you do, and how you sort of got to this position.
Oh, shit.
It's a mouthful.
All right. My name's Allard Cantor. I'm from New Jersey originally, and lived in New York City for a bunch of years. I was in corporate, in sales for a long time, did well, but then things changed in my industry and decided to try something different, and I took screenwriting class at NYU at night, which led me eventually to the AFI producing program, and while I was there, I interned at WME in the television department for one of the packaging partners, and when I finished AFI, I also made some short films, and when I finished AFI, I started trying to I was independently producing. And through that, I became close with some writers, started managing a couple, and decided that's what I really loved, and started a management company. And then a friend introduced me to Jared, and we started working together over a year ago. And we have 20 clients, and scattered between film and TV. We have one actor, writer, multi-hyphenate client, and that's it.
Shortest one yet. It's the shortest spiel. Thank you guys for coming, by the way, to hear us talk. So I'm Jared Murray. I'm Allard's coworker. I had a bit of a different route. I'm from Alabama originally. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So from Alabama originally, came out here, went to AFI as well a few years before Allard was there, also in the producing program. I left after the first year to start working, and wound up working for a producer named Marty Adelstein, who at the time was this is right around the time Prison Break got greenlit, so I helped with that, and just worked my way up from intern to exec, and got promoted when the script for this movie Hannah came across my desk, which eventually got made a couple years ago at Focus, so ran development for a couple other guys, and then left that job, and I was sort of at a crossroads in my career at that point. I had no desire to go back to work for another producer, and I just started working out of my house and wound up selling a couple projects, and then started with 2 clients, and managed not to fuck up my first deal a couple months into it. And then, the next thing I knew, I had like 8 clients, and then we got introduced last summer, and we've been kind of full steam ahead ever since. And we got like he said, we got like 20 clients, and we got some people staffed this past season. And have a couple movies that could get made this year, hopefully. I mean, for a 2-man shop, I feel like we've made a ton of headway over the past year. So, I guess that's it.
Okay, and Jelani, tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Jeff. So, I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm the oldest of three kids, and there's about 5 years difference between me and my next youngest brother. So I was kind of babysat by movies and television growing up, but I never thought I was going to work in entertainment. So when I went to college in New York, and I was in my first jobs as an adult were like in journalism, and I had a radio show in New York for a while, and I worked in business consulting, management consulting, like on Wall Street. And I never thought I was going to work in Hollywood. And maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I was in an event in Manhattan, and I met a guy who was an agent at CAA, and we ended up talking for like 2 hours. And at the end of the conversation, he asked me, "Hey, have you ever thought about working in Hollywood?" I was like, no, I've never thought about that. And he was like, well, this is our internship program. We would love to have you for the summer if you want to come out. And, I'm a pretty adventurous person, and I had never been to Los Angeles. So I was thinking, I'll go out here and do this internship, get to see the West Coast and spend a few months out there and come back to New York and keep working in consulting. So when I came out here, I fell in love with the industry because it was the perfect synthesis of all of my skills. Like when I was working in journalism and in consulting, my favorite part about those jobs was the interpersonal aspect of those jobs. So providing counsel to clients, strategizing, brainstorming, with the journalism, the investigative stuff, really digging deep into human emotions and relationships. And representation, that's just interpersonal communication at its very core. The relationship between a manager and their client, it's intimate. It's like having a girlfriend or a husband or a wife. So with my love of movies and television and just the whole nature of representation, entertainment was a great fit. And I interned at CAA. They gave me a full-time offer, and I've been working in Hollywood ever since. I moved over to Generate in 2010, in the fall of 2010, first as an assistant, and quickly worked my way up to manager. And I started off in talent, and over the last couple years, my list has grown into a mix of writers, directors, actors, producers. So, yeah.
Okay. And I'm curious, before we really dive in, how many of the people in the crowd are writers themselves or aspiring writers, by a show of hands? Okay, so we know why you guys are here. You guys want the secrets, and these guys are the ones who are going to share them with you. So we'll kind of just start with the big picture and narrow down the focus from there. What are you guys looking for? What are you looking for in a new client? What are you looking for in material? How do these guys get their scripts in your hands and all that?
Do you want to? Okay.
Who wants to start? Be
I'll
brave.
Start. It's tricky. I mean, like first thing we look for is mainly a voice. Can this person write? Whether even if it's like a small non-commercial, like the most non-commercial indie, like if we spark to something, then you like what you like. It's hard to say, in terms of specific concept, or like, I would love for us to be, setting up, selling scripts for $1 million at studios, but that's unfortunately not the climate we're in. And also you sort of look, our sell as a company is that, look, we're not Management 360, we're not 3 Arts, we're 2 guys, and we pride ourselves on like having, being very attentive to the client. We want to keep a very lean, fairly lean roster, so we can we can give that personal attention to these people, and we that's worked so far for us, and we tell the potential client, hey, if we respond to something, or we like each other, why don't you just let us give you a round of notes and see how that goes. And we kind of, because unless you're on the same page creatively, we can say, we can say the best shit about your writing, but like, if you're not, if you're not in sync, what's the point? So it's finding people who, A, good writers, B, just good people. It's people that you can work with and want to talk to on a daily basis, because that's like you're we're talking to clients 4, 5, 6 times a day sometimes, and for hours at a time. And so it's it's like Jelani said, it's a very intimate relationship, much more so than the agent client relationship. It's somebody, like, we have to, if we're going to put in the time on something, we have to know that, like, that you're that we're going to put in the time and work with you on that, then we have to sort of you have to be collaborative, and But in terms of like what we're looking for, what we respond to, it's hard to like genre wise. We always character first is kind of our motto. Like if we can always kind of put someone in some kind of cool high concept idea, but if they're not great at writing character, then it's like it's kind of a what's the point, so it's being able to write good characters. I don't know. I feel like I'm not really. Am I giving you a good answer?
It's fine. It's a big unwieldy question. Jelani, what about you? What do you look for in a new client or in material?
So, especially in this climate, I'm looking for people whose unique gift is undeniable. Like, by nature in Hollywood, executives and even agents to a certain degree, they're waiting for somebody else to validate the piece of talent or the product, and then they want to jump on. Everybody's afraid to be the first person to say this is cool or this is awesome. Like, so when looking for new pieces of talent and looking for new clients, I'm looking for people who the reaction I have when I see their work is so visceral and so undeniable that I have to work with them. Like, you can't give the person on the other end of the phone a reason to say no. It has to be above reproach. And you look at some of the people who are creating television shows these days, they're doing more than one thing. It's not about just being a writer. Whitney Cummings had 2 shows on the air a couple years ago. Mindy Kaling has a show on the air. These are people who, when you look at them, there's no one else in their lane, and you can't imagine anybody else doing what they do. So, I never, when I wake up in the morning, I don't go out saying I got to go find an Asian male in his mid-30s, because that's what casting directors are looking for. More often than not, I get surprised by what comes across my desk and what comes across my television screen and so on and so forth.
Well, let's start at like the very beginning of the process. Let's say this gentleman here in the front row, he has a great script, he's confident in it. How does he reach out to you guys? Does he put together a cover letter? He can't just send in the script blind, because I imagine you guys don't accept unsolicited submissions like most companies in Hollywood. How does someone who you guys don't know approach you to get that sort of first conversation?
It's like hot potato with this.
I mean, for now at least, I mean, we do accept query letters, and if we like the log line and like the summary, we will consider reading the script. But it depends. Like we're a little bit more open because we're a small shop that we're a little bit more open to it.
Well, how does it work at a bigger agency then? I mean, if how do you find representation sort of within one of those companies?
I mean, I think an easy way that comes to my head is finding a friend, or finding like if you're taking like a class, chances are you're taking it with a teacher who is either probably repped or you got to go out and network and try to find someone who is in that world that could maybe recommend you to a manager, or you have to get someone who is connected to read your script, and you could do that by developing personal relationships. It doesn't have to be straight up with a manager or an agent. It could be with a successful writer. It could be with a producer, a director who's working. There's a variety of ways to do it.
Why don't we share this mic going forward, and you guys hang on to that mic? Okay.
Yeah, most of our and honestly, we do take we do get unsolicited submissions, and we try to be as responsive as we can given our resources. But if something comes to us by referral, we're automatically going to take that one a little bit more seriously and probably get to it sooner. It's just kind of the way unfortunately it's kind of the way. Yeah. There's sort of the, we do have some interns writing coverage, and we've some things have kind of broken through that way. We found a couple things from the Blacklist site, which is hugely helpful. If you guys are, I'm sure you guys have know about it or have stuff on there or getting ready to put stuff on there. I mean, it's a very valuable resource. I wish we had more time to dedicate to. I find a client on Script Shadow who was from Alabama, and they have. This is a couple years ago. This is before the Disciple program, and so they still. I think I don't know if they still do it, but like they have Amateur Friday script review, and the thing caught my eye because it was from. The writer was from Alabama and wrote like an Alabama noir, and I'm like, oh, I'm from there. Even though like the script got a pass, I was like, I'm intrigued to read it, and so I read it and signed the writer, and he now has a book adaptation that Ben Whishaw is attached to, and Ian Softly's attached to direct. It's like a Southern Gothic murder mystery that looks like it might get made. I don't know. It's but it's there's so many entering contests, and I'm sure you guys are kind of doing that. But referral by far is definitely the best way to sort of speed up the process. I think. I don't know if Jelani's.
Well, referral's cool, but here's the secret. About blind submissions, right? And this is why most big agencies and like larger level management companies don't accept blind submissions. It's because they get hundreds of submissions a day on script concepts, and they can't possibly read them all. But if they accepted those submissions and then one of their clients went on to make something that was similar, they'd be legally liable and they could get sued because some unknown writer could say, hey, I mailed over a log line that was the exact same thing or that was really similar 2 years ago, and now I see this movie getting made. That's my idea. And they can get sued. The agency can get sued, or the director, the writer, or producer can get sued. So in order to protect themselves, that's why large agencies don't accept blind submissions. As far as what I think is the best way to get yourself noticed or signed, I think that in this day and age, there are so many resources available to people that are outside of the conventional studio and network system that you can go out and you can make your own content. And if it's quality, somebody's going to see it, right? So there's YouTube, there's Vimeo, there's all sorts of short film festivals. We were talking earlier, I know a lot of comedians and a lot of pieces of comedic talent are getting signed off of Vine. Vine's a great showcase. Instagram video is a great showcase to just show your comedic sensibility. Twitter, people can blow up off of Twitter and have a successful Twitter handle, and next thing you know, they spin that off into a book deal, or they spin that off into a television development deal. How many of you guys are familiar with Shit My Dad Says? It was a Twitter handle. That became a show, a shitty show with William Shatner attached. It wasn't a good show, but that guy was just an unknown writer who was writing books and tweeting. And he got a TV deal on a major network. So, exactly, and he's working consistently. So, I think it's about being proactive and finding a way to get the idea from your head to the screen, through whatever resources you have. It's not that expensive to go out, grab a camera, find somebody to edit yourself, and shoot a 5 to 10 minute short. District 9 started out as a short film, and now Neil Blomkamp is directing major studio films. So
we're seeing a lot of that in the industry, by the way, with short films, leading to feature deals even today. If you read Deadline, there was a short about a robot serial killer called Abe. Yeah, I watched it. It was really cool. A British writer-director, and now I think it was MGM that picked it up, and they're going to develop it into a feature. I think, the important thing is to get noticed. Like Jelani was saying about Twitter and Vine and whatnot. There was anybody? Do you guys follow the Seinfeld Today on Twitter, which comes up with modern day log lines for Seinfeld, and it's like Seinfeld's not coming back, but that Twitter account got a ton of followers, and that kid just got a job on a sitcom, if I'm not mistaken. So he did whatever it took to get noticed, and even though no one's going to make another Seinfeld show, it led to other things. Material-wise, guys, is there a certain genre that's hot right now that buyers are interested in? I mean, outside of like the comic book type of stuff, is there anything that comes to mind? Are studios taking more chances on erotic material in the wake of 50 Shades of Grey or anything like that?
I'm not noticing. There's of course there are certain trends, but I think I just think high quality content is being purchased now more than ever because there are more outlets for it. 10 years ago, if you had a high concept drama, it was HBO or maybe Showtime. Now you have AMC, which is a direct competitor. You have FX, which is doing really good programming. You have HBO, you have Stars, you have IFC, you have Sundance, you have Showtime still, and you have Cinemax, who's doing a show with Steven Soderbergh now called The Nick. So I think it's about having an airtight concept or show idea, and then just bringing that to fruition. I don't know if I think it's one of the best times ever to be a content creator, especially for television.
Just to add to that, I mean, we, in terms of thinking of things specifically to sell to feature studios, like it's just not for us. Like it's not an area that we're playing in. It's just like because trying to sell a feature spec now is like the hardest freaking thing ever, and there's so few of those. There's so few of those big sales that for us, it's like it's more beneficial for our time to be trying to break young writers in TV, which we've done. We have a writer. We got a writer staffed on Raising Hope this year. We have someone on a Disney show. We have it's the market for those voices. It's a lot. Not saying nothing's easy, like nothing, like trying to get this guy staffed on a show was a near miracle. But if you have a voice, if you have a cool, like Johnny said, if you have a cool concept that, like we have a writer, we just attached, John Turtletop, the director of National Treasure, to one of our pilots that we're taking out. And, it's a lot. TV is just kind of where it's. I mean, and look at Hulu. Like it's. There's so many outlets for content now. But in terms of trends that I've picked up on, in terms of like what studios are buying, I mean, it seems like grounded sci-fi is still in. Reasonably priced thrillers,
Mm-hmm.
Of the Blumhouse variety.
Right. These days, guys, we're seeing a lot of horror movies that some of the biggest movies of the summer. They didn't cost $100 million or $200 million. It wasn't The Lone Ranger. It was The Purge that cost $3 million or $5 million. So you want to be sort of cost efficient, and there are more companies that are looking to get into that low budget model. Paramount Insurge is sort of the genre label over for Paramount, and there's a lot of examples of that kind of stuff. Go ahead, Jelani.
Lionsgate. I think I kind of dodged your question earlier, but this just came to me. Book adaptations are really big. Teen sci-fi book adaptations, like in the after post Twilight, everybody's looking for that next big thing, right? So Hunger Games was a proof of concept, right? Like people still want to watch that stuff. There's another there's another film coming out called The Maze Runner that's a teen book adaptation. So whatever the 12 to 17, 15-year-olds are reading, and that's still what major studios are putting their money into.
But could you write a script like The Maze Runner without it being based on a book?
No. Well, yes, you could actually, for sure.
Okay.
For sure, absolutely.
Do you think that the industry is seeing any fatigue with the young adult stuff? Because this weekend, Mortal Instruments is opening, and it's not expected to do very well. And we've seen Beautiful Creatures didn't perform well, and there was one other one in there earlier this year. But is there sort of young adult fatigue, or I mean, how quickly do you have to jump on these bandwagons once they start to emerge?
I think it's execution. I think the Mortal Instruments movie, I think it's getting like a 9 or 10 on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's just I think the studios have gotten a little bit lazy with it, and I think that's the problem with these. But if you come up with Harry Potter was so well executed. Even the Hunger Games was too. Not everyone loves the Hunger Games, but it was a very well executed movie that that a broader audience could latch onto. So I think I think it's more about how I don't think people are tired of this type of material. I think people are tired of a crappy version of that material. If that makes sense.
I have a lot more questions, but I'm blanking right now. We'll go back and forth. But does anyone in the audience have any questions? You, sir, in the hat back there.
I'll answer that as best I can. It's a pretty complex question, but essentially, as far as where the managers fit in, there's still yes, you can definitely make something that goes viral and get a lot of attention, but the managers and agents can help you position your material and position yourself for the next project. With the big corporations, can help you get hired on either a television show or help you partner with a producer or financier to get your now you've made a great short that's gone viral. Now what? Where are you going to get $10 million to make your next movie? Manager, agent, or both can kind of help you with strategy and positioning yourself to get to that next step and level. And as far as how we fit into the new economy, I think as far as me and Jared and I'm sure Jelani will say the same thing. We all feel that we're very instrumental in helping our clients develop their material for the marketplace. We go back and forth. Unlike agents, agents want something ready to sell. It's very rare that agents will do development as well, but Jared and I for sure roll up our sleeves and go back and forth and develop with our clients to make sure that it's ready to partner with an agent and or go out to financiers or to producers.
Hollywood is an industry of apprenticeship, right? There's a reason that people come out here and start off as assistants and start to build their relationships and learn from more established players in the space. It's because all we're really selling is managers or agents. There's no tangible product, right? So what we're selling is our intellect, our charisma, our relationships, our network, and our skills of persuasion, right? And also your taste. Whoever you're representing, your rep's taste should be aligned with your taste. Because if you have a good manager, like Allard just said, you guys are going to be developing together. So, you can't come out to L.A. or go to New York and immediately know where to get financing, know what studios and networks are looking for, because their mandates change constantly, right? We keep grids in our office of what FX is looking for, and it changes from season to season, right? So it's about putting your client in the best position to get the win. And they may not know what it takes to get the win. I'm not talking about quality-wise. I'm just talking tonally, because different outlets or different buyers are looking for different things. So as reps, it's our job to know all of that like the back of our hand. So that's what your manager or your agent is providing you. They're putting you in a position to win.
And to that point, guys, stay up on reading the trades like therap.com or whatever else they may be. You can get a sense of the market. You find that's how when I first came out to LA, I spent 5 years at Variety, and I took the job there because I was reading it every morning, and I wanted to be kept abreast of what was selling and why and to where. So I think it is important to stay on top of the actual the news of the entertainment industry. You had a question, right?
I mean, depends on, seriously, it depends on, if we really respond to the voice, but generally right. I mean, we're hoping down the road, to represent more actors, but for now, our business is focused on, if we do represent actors, they have to be also active writers or active writer directors.
That what you just said, writing for yourself and writing to sell something, they're not mutually exclusive. Anything you write, unless it's just in your diary or something, if you're in the business of entertainment, you should be writing to sell. So oftentimes actors write because they're not getting breakthroughs in other spaces. Like acting, I always tell people acting is the hardest job in Hollywood because you're waiting on somebody else to validate you. You're waiting for a casting director or director or producer to say, okay, you're cool to come on to my project. You're not creating your own project, right? So with that being said, it makes sense to be a writer, actor, or an actor, director. You have to attach a different skill set to whatever you're already bringing to the table as an actor or actress.
I think we're seeing that all over the industry, whether it's Lena Dunham, who, when you look at Lena, no one's going to think that's a movie star, that's a TV star, but she went out and she created the show for herself. Whether it's Lake Bell, who has In a World out in theaters right now, she was probably frustrated with the parts she was getting offered, or even a Joseph Gordon-Levitt or a Ryan Gosling, both guys who are, huge movie stars, but they're probably getting the same generic studio offers as most people. They decide to direct their own movies. So, you got to be willing to. It always helps to have that other skill, I think, as a multi-hyphenate. Yes, sir.
I don't accept query letters personally. Like I work off of referrals, and like I said, if I see something that catches my eye, I'm gonna reach out and find the person who created that. So,
let me ask you: does it help to come to things like this, or pitch festivals, or wherever it may be, where there are industry people that you can maybe approach afterwards, or is it like, those things are kind of a waste of time?
I definitely think it helps. It's about maximizing your exposure to people like us. That sounded crazy, but maximizing your exposure to people who can help open doors, and that just happens through conversation. So, it's like walking up to somebody after a panel or going to a mixer or some sort of premiere or some function and introducing yourself and connecting as a person and saying, hey, this is the idea I have. Would you like to talk about it? Sure.
That really goes for any business. I mean, as a reporter, I got to be out there meeting people, because if I call Jelani and I've never met him, and I said, Jelani, what's Sheldon doing to follow up Love? He's going to be like, who are you, and why do I want to give you that piece of information? Having a face-to-face relationship and getting out there, going to industry mixers, things like this conference, whatever it may be, it's always helpful. And I think that there is stuff you can learn from it.
I mean, even if you pick up one small piece of information, or even if it's not from one of us, like, you guys should like hang out with each other after this and compare war stories and see like what has been successful for you, or what, learn, just kind of by sharing information amongst yourselves. I mean, alone is worth it, I think.
Honestly, celebrities are more accessible than ever these days. Whether it's Twitter or whatever, you can have that dialogue now, and I think that the artists appreciate it, having the dialogue with the audience, and also, I imagine that's why the audience reaches out to them. Sorry, you had a question, Miss.
For me, they're putting like concept above character. I think like people are like, all right, I got to write this big Hollywood movie, and they write like, yes, it's in space and there's a big action scene and there's drugs and they but then like it's boring. You know what I mean? Or like you don't really get to understand the character or it's just like not a compelling story. I think people need to just tell stories. Start with telling stories that are personal to them, create characters that feel real, that you really get to know what they're going through from beginning to end. I think that's a lot more important.
But at the same time, to add to that, it's what I notice is that there, while yes, there's that, but there's too often I see scripts come across my desk or my iPad or whatever, that in which the writer's just not really thinking about who's going to see this movie. Like do people really want to watch this movie about an amputee stripper? Or it's not thinking with an audience in mind. Or like it's great to have good characters, and I'm sure if it's well written, I'm sure it's like, but sometimes we get pitched things from our writers, and like, man, you're just really not making it easy on us. Like, just help us help you with just like we have a great writer who wrote a biopic that about Abbott and Costello. Like, great idea, really hard to get out there in the marketplace. It's and it's really well written. But when you're, that's a big problem for me is writers who just aren't really thinking about like who's gonna see it. So
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes writers make are, so at studios there's these things called OWAs. They're open writing assignments. So it's basically like any given studio has a bunch of projects that are sitting on the shelf for them, right? And they bring in writers to try to crack the project and provide a fresh take. Oftentimes people who aren't, and there's a list of writers who get the opportunities to crack these open writing assignments. Not anybody can just come in and say, oh, I want to write this. I think oftentimes young writers, unestablished writers, write as if they're write to fill other people's expectations rather than writing what's coming out of their heart. Like, whatever story has to come out of you, that's what you should be writing. But like Jared said, make sure there's a fan base and an audience base for that. But don't write because you're anticipating what somebody else wants you to write. Like, you're a writer, that's your gift. Like that's an extension of who you are as a person. It's coming from your soul. So make sure that whatever story you're telling, you have to tell it. That's my advice.
All right. So know your audience, and know who you're pitching to as well. I mean, if I had a great comedy script and I was looking for a manager, I'd want to go to someplace like 3 Arts. If I had a great comedy script and was looking to get it in the hands of a producer, I wouldn't take it to Roy Lee. He does horror and thrillers. So know the audience that you want to see this, product, whether it's on the big or small screen, and also kind of, smartly target who you're trying to get it in the hands of.
Well, you can't make this step to TV without interest from a television studio or even at the next level, a television network, right? You can't just say, I'm going to create a TV show and then do it. So whoever you're in business with, through the notes they give you and just through the development process, that relationship will dictate how consistent you have to be tonally with your digital content. I think it's the answer to that question is largely contingent on the network or studio you're working with.
I mean, it's interesting. There's I don't know who here has heard of Nathan Barnett. Nate, this guy, you guys should look him up. He's got 214,000 subscribers on YouTube. The guy is like one of the biggest money makers for Maker Studios, which Maker Studios basically will once you're big enough and have enough followers or subscribers, they will actually fund your shorts, and you'll then get a piece of the income. But this is a guy who obviously has he has 214,000 subscribers, millions of people are watching his stuff, but at the same time, this guy is like struggling. He's got a couple of things kind of in process. He's repped by high level guys. It's a struggle for him to get his own show on the air. I think the execs of the world are still leery of like the YouTube star. You know what I mean? And I think like it's a great way to bust through in some cases, like Blomkamp, but it also can be. It could also have the reverse effect. So.
Also, if you think about YouTube stars, just as far as the nature of YouTube, successful people on YouTube is different than the nature of successful television creators. Like, there's not too many successful dramatic YouTube series or even comedic YouTube series, right? People, the YouTube providers, YouTube content creators who have the most followers and views or have vlogs or short form comedy. And that doesn't translate to television or features. That's perfect for right where it is, which is YouTube. So I don't think there's if you're a writer, you're not writing vlogs. People just wake up and do vlogs or talk about or do clip shows. Like Tosh.0 is an example of a television show that could be a successful YouTube show. Because that's what Ray William Johnson's doing, basically. It's just featuring other people's clips and making funny jokes. But I don't think the skill set necessarily translates as far as scripted content from the web to television.
How important is it to have multiple scripts ready to show agents and managers when you're ready to go out and sign with one? I mean, you can't just write one script and say, this is genius, I'm ready for an agent or a manager. Because they're going to be like, well, what else do you have? Because it could be a fluke.
I think at the very least, like you need to have at least some fully fleshed out ideas ready to go. So when they do talk to you, like you also don't want to send someone like 8 scripts. Like I've had people like blind submit like 8 scripts and I just press delete. And like I think you got to put in your heart what's your best script, and you got to put that best foot forward, and then be ready with additional either scripts would be ideal, but at least fully formed ideas or treatments that you can then follow up with if they like it. Hey, I love this. What else you got? Then you can be ready for that.
What about taking stuff from the public domain, guys? Whether it's old fairy tales that you can put a modern spin on. I mean, we've seen a lot of success. Last year there were the 2 Snow White movies. That's a branded property, but they didn't need to acquire any rights to do it.
I don't know what public domain properties haven't been mined. Already. I'm all for trying to definitely advocating trying to find those ideas, but it's tricky now because the market's so saturated with Snow White, Alice in Wonderland, now on TV once upon a time, and Grimm, and I think they're probably out there, but I don't know. I'm kind of struggling to think kind of what hasn't been, what property Robin Hood, what hasn't been done to death at this point. That could still seem fresh. I'm just sort of blanking on it. I don't know if anybody.
But what about taking like a well-known property and then just putting a different take on it? Well, whether it's what was I think even the Wachowskis, Jupiter Ascending or whatever, is supposed to be like Bonnie and Clyde in space.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Oh, and there was that Ian Shore script last year, Christo, that was basically Count of Monte Cristo in space. So just whatever it is, just put it in space, and then you're good. Wizard of Oz in space. No, I mean, the twists on those types of ideas. It's but the trick is just that's a way to kind of make it make it seem fresh is like putting it in a different milieu or that kind of thing.
I mean, but is it easier to sell that kind of thing, or are you guys looking for more like original screenwriting? I mean, that is original screenwriting, but
yeah, if I think like even I think even I could probably speak for Allard. So if something, it's just a natural like something in your brain that says like, oh, I've heard of that before, and I think that's an interesting hook that we haven't seen before. I think, it's just it's some sort of comfort level with a character or with some kind of property that people have, and it's just like I'm certainly not exempt from it either. If it's a unique kind of if it turns somehow turns a well-known story or character on its ear, puts it in a different locale, or of course it's like if it's not gonna it's a moot point if the writing is not good. So it's but it certainly catches the eye.
I think it all depends on where you are in your career. Because more often than not, the people who tend to remake things tend to be already established, right? So like Annie's coming out again, but it's Will Smith and Jay-Z producing, right? Sam Raimi directed Oz the Great and Powerful, right? Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. These are like people. These are people who, like, power players can say, okay, I want to remake this, and then they can create the package around it that the studio is going to go for, and then they can make a lot more money on top of the money they already have. But these aren't first time.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Oz started as a spec script though,
right,
by Mitch Kapner that sold, so that was another public domain,
right?
That sold to a studio, so it's it's still realistic.
But but it's not an independent. It's not an independent film.
No.
It's A-list people in the package to bring it to the big screen. Like, you're not seeing Oz the Great and Powerful at Sundance. It's not happening.
One trend I've noticed that I think is actually really interesting, if you guys wanted to dig into it, is the making of movie. Last year there was Hitchcock, which was about the making of Psycho. Coming out at Christmas time is Saving Mr. Banks, which is about Walt Disney's struggle to get the rights to make Mary Poppins. And then there's also a script on the blacklist, I think it's called The Shark Is Not Working, which is about the making of Jaws. I think it's a great way to sort of make a splash in Hollywood and get attention, and you don't necessarily need the rights to those original movies or books or whatever to do it. But behind every movie is probably a fascinating story of how that movie got made. So I have noticed, the writer of Saving Mr. Banks is now writing 50 Shades of Grey. The guy who wrote the Making a Jaws movie just got a big deal. I just think it's a kind of interesting way to break into the business, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think of those. I know they're really hyper-specific examples.
Sure. I want to. Can we do a making of Jaws: The Revenge? I think that would. No, I mean, saving. Saving Mr. Banks, was obviously a big script. It's got Kelly Marcel, a lot of opportunities off of that. And I think, you can, I think if it's something that hasn't been, I don't think. Yeah, obviously depends on what that is. I mean, I think there's some identification with. With the characters, if like for instance, like going back to this Abbott and Costello thing, that it's good, but people are like, Abbott and Costello, like it's not that,
17-year-olds are not going to go see the Abbott and Costello movie on Friday night.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas things like Psycho and Jaws have endured the test of time.
Yeah.
Were there any more questions from the audience? I mean, no. Okay. What else can we talk about, guys? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't see you. We only accept one-part questions, miss. I'm kidding. Go for it.
Yeah, you have to have something to like. They have to know that you're able to write that idea. We have a few things that show Bible wise that have been helpful, but it's supplemental to the pilot. It's you have to have a well written pilot. Otherwise, you can have the best idea ever, but if there's no pilot, then it's just an idea.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, like, if you get it to like a production company or a showrunner, and they really respond to it and they're willing to take it over. There is a chance there, but I think it's very difficult for someone who has never written a script, to even get that in those people's hands. I think how that situation happens if you have like a kind of a lower level writer, who's repped, and the rep loves their idea and like then shares it with a big showrunner, that can happen. But I think it's hard for someone who is just cold off the street, like, to just get an idea to like a showrunner. They don't want to hear it either, for the same reasons Jelani said about getting sued, or they just don't have the time or the bandwidth to look at it either, generally.
Yeah, but sometimes things do still get sold with just a Bible. I just had a client sell a show to ABC with only a Bible, but that also kind of makes the whole deal process more complex, right? Because now they're getting paid. Because if you already have the pilot, they don't have to pay you to write they don't pay you to write the pilot that you already have. No, or if they like it. Right. So, but if you sell only a Bible, the development process becomes that much longer, because then the client has to go write the pilot, and the network has to approve the pilot. So, but if you have a high level showrunner, or the client themselves is established in the television space, you can sell something solely off of a pitch. I don't know about. I can't speak to that.
I feel like she's kind of touching upon packaging a little bit. Can you guys talk about how much more important that's becoming in the business these days? Because it seems to me like companies, they want the whole enchilada. They don't want to waste time putting it together. They just say, "Give me a go movie, and then we'll go make it."
Yeah, I find like a lot of what I'm doing as a manager is what I was doing as a development exec. In that, I'm calling agents trying to get their director client to read my client's script. It's sort of putting on that producer hat and being resourceful and trying to package a piece of material. I think it's so much, it's kind of maddening, like dealing with that, like trying to get responses on everything, but like that's just part of it now. Like it's you have to be kind of resourceful in that regard, like putting those lists together and getting it to the right people.
Was that both the questions? Was that the two-part, or was there another part coming? Okay. Yes, sir.
Well, I think they're two totally different relationships. The director and writer. Someone's a writer director, and with the your manager and agent, first of all, should be on the same page with what you're trying to do, and vice versa. You don't want. Otherwise, it's just going to be a battle. You're not going to agree with what they're trying to do, and they're not going to agree with the direction you're taking. So you want to try to find representation who kind of sees at least as close to eye with you as possible on what you're trying to do. And I think you need to figure out, if we're talking about you specifically, you need to figure out, kind of on in a more detailed way, like what your strategy is, what are your goals, where do you see yourself in 3 years, and then clearly express it to your representation who may think you're great, but they may have other ideas for you than what you're envisioning. Yeah, it could be that, but it also, I mean, it's also tricky because they may not want like, all right, like something that sounds very similar to like their other clients. You know, it could be either. I mean, you might be a good fit for someone who, you know, may have had a lot of success in comedy, but really secretly wants to work with auteurs. So it's up in the air. I think you're gonna have to just, you know, do the best you can to get your material to reps who at least are in the same ballpark with what you're doing, but then who respond to your material, and then go from there and see who's the right fit for you.
I'd be curious to know a little bit. We'll get to you in 1 second, sir. Just about writing partners. Like I've had friends who have struggled as screenwriters, and they say, eventually they're like, they want a writing partner. Essentially, it's half the work and twice the contacts. Essentially, you're expanding your contact base. I'm seeing a lot more screenplays getting sold by writing teams, and I don't know if that's just because maybe two people in a room pitching something is more charismatic than one or whatever. I'm just curious as to your take on whether it's helpful to get a writing partner if you're struggling on your own.
Jelani, do you want to start?
Sure. Earlier, I can't remember which one of you guys said this, but you said that it's important that even at events like this, meet the other people in the room, right? These are the sort of settings where you can find a writing partner or unexpectedly, but it's twice the contacts, it's half of the work, but it's also half of the money. So, be like, really think about that as you look in an industry where already you might not be getting paid that much money to write stuff anyway. When you have a writing partner, that's even less money. But when finding a writing partner, I think it's important to really be honest with yourself critically and say, what are my shortcomings? And you don't want to work with somebody who has the exact same skills or even sensibilities as you. You want to find somebody who complements you, and together you guys are the full package, right? So it might be a good personality fit, but if you guys are having trouble cracking the same things, that's probably not the best writing partner for you. So it's about utilizing your network and your resources to connect with somebody who's going to fill your shortcomings, essentially. And oftentimes, some people might start out as writing partners and then, strengthen each other, and then a few years down the line they split, and both parties are successful in their own right. That happens often. So
it's also, I mean, a positive of it is a lot of, like during staffing season, I saw a couple times where they picked up writing teams because, well, hey, we're getting 2 writers for the price of 1, and so that was attractive to like a writer's room or to the studio picking it up. But I mean, I think you really need to know. You really need to like be careful when you're starting a partnership with someone, because when you do split up, or if it doesn't work out, and especially if you've come like a certain way, people start to question, well, is so and so better, or like you have to start over in a way. Is your partner better than you, or are you better than your partner, or like and so. It could. I've seen it also get complicated with writing partners, and it depends on what you want to do. Also, I mean, if you want your voice to shine through, I think you're almost better off just writing on your own.
It all depends on whether you guys like that sort of writing alone in a room, being solitary, or whether you think you thrive in an atmosphere with another person, which is more what TV is. You're in a big room with a bunch of writers all spitballing ideas,
Oh, can I just add to that? And we have anytime we get a couple of times a script is I've come across a script, or a client has written a script with a partner And you're like, yeah, I don't really write normally with that partner, but we wrote this together. And I'm like, well, that makes it difficult for me in terms of selling you, like, and like trying to get this out there as a sample, because like, you know, someone's going to read it like, well, does he or she have a solo sample? If not, then you're kind of screwed if you're not going to write with this person, you know, on a regular basis. So also something to think about.
If the short film is phenomenal, then yes. But you know, it's cool to be malleable, but you also want to be really rooted in what your vision is and what your goals are. So, you know, sometimes I know, as the gentleman right here alluded to earlier, television is where the money is these days. But I know a lot of guys who grew up, and women who grew up on movies and are cinephiles, and that's what they always dreamed about, was being a movie writer, a feature film writer, director. And they kind of try to adapt and fit into the television marketplace, but it's like fitting a square peg into a round hole. That's not really what they want to do. So if features are what you want to do, then you should stick to features. And any time you write a short film, you know, short films, they can oftentimes stand alone, but I know a lot of times people create shorts with the but they envision it as being like the foundation of a potential feature, right? So it all depends on what you want to do. And then from there, if the content's great, you sit down and you meet with a manager or an agent, and it's like a date, and you feel them out. You know, it's if you guys aren't vibing as people, then it's not going to be a good thing. But if your work is great and then we meet and we hit it off, then all lights are a go to work together. So I think it's about creating the best. If you're making short films, make the best short film you can, and recognize your strengths and deficiencies. You know, just because, you know, the marketplace is telling you to be a writer, director, actor. If you realize, hey, I'm struggling with this writing thing, bring in a friend or bring in some sort of person who you're connected with, who you know is a strong writer, and have them write for you, because it's a showcase for their talents too. You know, like, there's classes in Hollywood. It's like, you know, people going to high school, you're a freshman, sophomore, junior. People grow together. So if you came to town in the year 2000, and everybody else who came to town in that year, you're gonna keep seeing them for the next decade. You guys are gonna grow together. And some people have different skills that can fit with other people's skills. You know what I mean? Look at like Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn. Those guys are in the same class. They started out in independent film, and now they're both superstars. You know, so if you want to create short films or digital content, find the people who fit best with your skill set and work together. Or if you're just a rock star, if you're Ben Affleck or somebody like that, you know, just create it. It's like in Field of Dreams, there's that quote, if you build it, they will come. Managers and agents will find you. Executives will find you. If the content's like incredible, people are going to be knocking on your door. So just do it with the faith that, hey, I'm doing this and my product is great, and people will find you.
Can't be afraid to fail, gang. Any other questions? Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a really curious person. So when things pop up in my Facebook feed, like, you know, Facebook is really cool right now because I don't know how the program works, but people who you think are cool and who are aligned with your like sensibilities, they're the ones that pop up on your mini feed. Like, random friends don't just pop up. It's people who you consider tastemakers, right? So, you know, and to a large extent, those people become curators of content. You know, like, I work in Hollywood. A lot of my friends are executives or agents or managers or actors or writers, and they're posting things on their wall. I'm going to click on it, most likely. If I have 2 minutes to spare, I'm going to click on it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like just finding things organically. I don't, you know, there's not like certain websites I go to. It's like, okay, what's the new short film today? You know, if people post it, their friends start supporting it, and then it's just like an avalanche effect. It gets exposed to more and more eyeballs. So something doesn't have to have 2 million views to go viral. It can have 500 views. But if those 500 people are the right people, then somebody's going to find it.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, a lot of ours is definitely through referral. I mean, that's where we find a large sum of him. But we try to go to film festivals. We also film schools. We have we're both very very connected into AFI, and we sometimes get people contacting us directly from there, and we'll talk to them. We'll talk to them because we're connected to AFI, and that it varies. I mean, I randomly kind of cruise the internet and yeah check stuff out, but anyway,
I know Script Shadow was mentioned earlier in the panel. As a reporter, that was a guy whose blog I read every day just to keep up on this type of stuff that both professional and amateur writers are selling. And I think that is a blog that you guys should familiarize yourself with. And he has, set up projects and helped launch careers and gotten, Hollywood pays attention to someone like that. So, there are those people online, sort of in the shadows, who can somehow help you out.
Right. And, this is important to remember. Hollywood isn't a meritocracy. Just because you write the best thing or you're the best actor, you go to Juilliard, like, if you're not out there selling yourself, you might not succeed. There's a lot of people who are successful who on paper they don't have the skills to really deserve that success. So, if you're working in this industry, you have to be ready to go out a couple nights a week and come to panels like this and really be active. You can't just sit in your room and write things and expect success to come. You have to go be your own best advocate. Like, if I always use this analogy about representation. If every client is a company, you're the president of your company, right? Like, nobody's gonna have your best interest in mind like you will. You're the president of your company. Now, your manager is the CEO of your company. You guys work hand in hand, right? And they help you fulfill those visions. And your agent's your chief marketing executive, and their job is just to sell, and be out there pitching. And your lawyer is your business affairs department, but you're the president of your company. So go out there and lead by example. Like, be active.
Yes, in the back.
Writers who say we have a client who writes all these different one client who writes these. I would say, like, at least at first, like, we have to. It's hard enough selling someone who writes one genre, and then I think for at least for us, like, it's only so many hours in the day, and we have clients who write both comedy and drama, but it's a task, trying to get this person going in drama. So it's I'd say, like, at least, like, in terms of, like, as you're getting your feet wet and, like, getting exposed, like, people want to know, people want to pigeonhole you, basically, and, like, know that, like, okay, well, that's what I'm getting from this writer, and and sort of try to build. I'd say try to find the one thing you're good at and just keep doing that for a while, and because it's I don't know, that's my advice.
And that's what I hear from a lot of representatives around town. If a studio is looking, like you said, with the OWAs, if they've got a comedy script that's been sitting on a shelf at a studio, they want to go to their comedy list and go down that list and try and find a writer to do a new draft on it. Your job is to sort of get on that list, and the way you do that is by sticking to one genre. Once you've had success, then you can branch out.
Kelly
right?
Marcel, good example. She wrote the Mary Poppins movie, and now she's writing she's adapting 50 Shades of Grey. She got known. She broke out with that script. Her and now she's able to kind of do different things. So it's yes,
starting out, I think they want to sell you as sort of one thing. Like you said, they want to put you in a box. And that goes, whether you're an actor or director, all that as well. Yeah.
Not really. I mean, he, once he became successful, like once his movies were successful, he was able to convince people to give him money, and to make other types of movies. He's like, look, he was able to, like, he's a guy who had, I mean, Stanley Kubrick is, arguably one of the best filmmakers ever, and he, he was able to probably demonstrate to the studios and to the financiers, like, hey, here's the story I'm going to tell. This is why, an audience will see it. He probably was, once he had success, was able to do that. But
also he it was he started out in a time in which directors got a chance to hone their craft over several movies, and that doesn't happen now. You get like one shot, or basically, and like if your movie really tanks, and it's really hard for you to get work after that. And but like the amount of movies that were getting made back then were so it was a lot more studio releases, I think. But yeah, I mean, Killer's Kiss to The Killing to Paths of Glory. It's
yeah. He was an outlier, and the business has kind of changed. Drastically.
To be clear, I don't only find people on Facebook. Like, I go to film festivals and, like, I'm out. I'm not just on Facebook all day. Like, it all kind of touches back to, like, that personal connection with the representative, because if somebody responds to your material, then they're the right person for you to be working with. You should, it's weird. You should never really be knocking on the doors of agents or managers, because, like, they might sign you, but they're not going to really be engaged in that team. They're not going to feel like incentivized to really go out and advocate for you. So they have to. So at these festivals, the person who walks up to you and is like, "That was a great film," or the jury member who's connected to some sort of representation, and they're like, "Hey, I voted for your film because it was amazing, and I've been telling all my friends about it." Those are the sort of people you want to work with, because they feel like they're a part of the journey. So.
And also, I've been with my wife 14 years, married for 12, and I don't know if that'd be the case if I was writing and directing with her. But so good luck to you guys. But okay, all right, good. Yeah, I mean, I think I think just keep being persistent, get your stuff out there. Through these festivals, through, contact the people at the festivals, that where you've won, or contact, and get them to, refer you, ask for the referral. That's that's good advice for any business. There's never any shame in asking for a referral. And, all of you in this room must know someone who's connected into the industry. And if you don't, you'll meet them. But, once they get to know you, don't ask for it without any sort of relationship. But once you develop a relationship and they see your work and they're genuinely impressed by your work, ask those people, like, for a referral. Hey, do you know a manager that I could talk to? Do you know an agent that would look at my stuff? What advice do you have? But obviously, you should wait till you really get to know that person, and if that person really likes your stuff.
We've got about 5 more minutes. If there's any last questions, speak now, forever hold your peace. Anybody? Yes, sir.
No, well, we have actually, Jared and I have a client in Australia, a client in the UK, a client from Japan who lives part of the year here, and we have one who's from Mexico City but who's living here. And just finished her first feature, directing and writing her first feature in Mexico. So Jared and I are certainly open to anybody, who writes or directs material that we respond to, regardless of where they're from.
Do you want to field it or no?
I love international clients. They're awesome. All right, where are you from? Australia. You guys are hot right now. Everybody wants to work with the Australians. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it helps to live in LA to be able to take general meetings or whatever. But we're obviously seeing a ton of international filmmakers get a lot of high-profile jobs. Just look at the Kon-Tiki guys who are doing Pirates of the Caribbean 5, of course. Yes, sir, in the corner. I'm sorry. If you're a writer and you're writing for Hollywood, your English needs to be impeccable. If you're a director, that doesn't necessarily matter. There's plenty of successful foreign directors who speak broken English, or English isn't. It's clear it's not their first language. If you know movies and sets, then you can direct. So for actors and directors, it's not that important. But for writers, you definitely need to be completely fluent in English.
No, I agree. I mean, it's like if I'm reading something and it's just hard to understand or it's off, I'll put it down for sure.
Yes, sir.
I'll bounce off the introductions originally. Like one thing I haven't gleaned from our conversation, I know you have some connections with AFI, but I want to know from a manager representative standpoint, who are your connections in the industry? What are your better relationships, business relationships?
I mean, it's just hard to list. I mean, I think Jelani said it best when he just talks about, all right, when you get here, you start meeting a bunch of people. Like, I worked at WME for the summer and met 20 people and a bunch of them are helping me in one degree or another. Including like the guy I worked for specifically. And you just through meeting people, we as managers, it's easy. It's pretty easy for Jared and I have been able to pretty much meet with anyone we've wanted to. Like most executives, and are willing to meet with us. We go in there, we meet with them, and we kind of explain what we have, and they say, okay, we'll send this or don't send that, and we kind of go from there.
I mean, so much of our day, and I'm Jelani can relate, is like calling people you don't know and like introducing yourself. In addition to it's or like checking in with people that you already know. I mean, and after I've been here for 10 years, so it's it's all sort of we're going on we're meeting like 10 new people a week, and it's right now it's like we've been around as a company for about a year, and it's all about like kind of establishing, like if having been on the executive side of it, I don't want to get a call from some manager saying I got this amazing script, but like I've sent him 2 crappy things, and this guy's like, I don't want to read anything from this person ever. So it's like establishing a reputation for having quality scripts so that people will read more stuff, and like it's it's hard to kind of say what our best connections are. It's like we've it's just we can, and this guy's a networking fiend, and like you could like throw a rock and he probably went to school with someone that your friend went with or something, it's we can getting to people is doable. We just have to be kind of industrious about it if we don't know somebody. But like we can I don't know. It's hard to answer that question. But I don't know if that helped. That gave a little insight into it at all. But
Or maybe like you guys probably sold shows or something, or got people booked. That's kind of sci-fi, MTV, the whole.
It's client dependent. We kind of meet people depending on we kind of target buyers depending on what our clients are doing and what, who's looking for what. It's really not, there's really, you can know the president of Warner Brothers, but if you don't have anything that they're looking for, who cares? You have to, it's really all over the place depending on what, what your clients have and then figuring out who's looking for that type of property.
Well, this is a practice that I started with as an assistant. If my boss had business with somebody else and I was on the phone with the other person's assistant, oftentimes one of us would say, "Hey, let's grab lunch," right? Years pass, both of you all get promoted. Next thing you know, that's an executive, right? If I'm on the phone, and to this day, if I'm on the phone with an executive and we haven't met, hey, let's grab lunch, let's grab breakfast, let's grab drinks. One of those three, or even a coffee, right? Just organically, you start to meet people. It's not like this industry is that big. The more time you spend here, you're going to meet people. You're going to meet pretty much everybody eventually, if you don't get run out of town. So, it's just adding a personal touch, and you can't get hung up on people passing on material or this and that. It's about like humanizing the person on the other end of the phone or the person sitting across from you. People are going to pass on shit. If you don't respond to it, you don't respond to it. But you don't want to. But just because somebody passes on one project, you don't want to close that door for the next project. So just be cool about it. It's like, oh, this thing my client's doing isn't a fit for you. It's all good. We'll find something else. And then you do find something else down the line.
You shouldn't have called that guy an asshole this morning on the phone when he passed on.
Right. So yeah, it happens organically. Like you're going to the longer time you spend in the industry, the more people you'll meet.
And don't burn bridges. As for my best connection, I'm sleeping with Steven Spielberg. Guys, we are out of time, but thank you so much for coming. Let's thank our panelists.